Hi, everybody. Welcome to the panel, The Future of Data on Kubernetes with Adobe and CNCF. My name is Sylvain Kalache. I'm the head of content at the Data on Kubernetes community. So today we are joined by two amazing speakers, Xing and Joseph. Hi to both of you. Before getting started, how about we get to know a little bit more about you. Xing, let's start with you.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Xing Yang. I'm a tech lead in the cloud storage team at VMware. I'm also a co-chair of CNCF TAG Storage, a co-chair of Kubernetes SIG Storage. I also co-lead the Data Protection working group in Kubernetes.
I'm Joseph Sandoval. I am with Adobe, and I work with our Ethos container platform team, and I'm one of the lead engineers with that organization. I also have been with the Kubernetes release teams over the last 6 release cycles. Just recently served as the 124 Emeritus Advisor.
Amazing. Thank you to both of you. So we ran a survey that you can download on our website, on DOK.community, that found that 90% of people who were surveyed believe that Kubernetes is actually ready for running stateful workload. But obviously, there are still a lot of challenges, and we are quite excited today to get your take on where things are going today and how do you think they will evolve. Joseph, let's start with you. So this morning, we got a demonstration from AD showing how Kafka run as a stateful workload on Kubernetes. In general, like, could you say, what is natively handled by Kubernetes from what is not?
Well, the team there, I mean, they have really tried to put Kubernetes first, and really, when it makes sense, they're looking at like the native things that will allow them to run these workloads. And so, it's always kind of in motion. One thing I do know is that group has really taken like, let's think about what we're building and designing, and then looking at like the Kubernetes constructs and things like operators, which to me like makes sense when you're looking at the life cycle of these either streaming services or more stateful type database apps makes sense. And so I think that's always kind of been in their design from the beginning of their architecture, is just looking at it as like, how do we natively run? But the challenge comes in is we live in a world where even though it's 2022, we're coming out of like this world of like that initial cloud VMs. A lot of these things were kind of built with that kind of abstraction in mind, and now having to move these things and run them in Kubernetes. Well, not everything is always ready, and so I know they've had to make some pragmatic decisions in regards to like workload rebalancing. Should we use more of the native tool, and as it catches up and becomes more Kubernetes aware, maybe it evolves into an operator. But they've leaned on these kind of tools to be able to do some of these day-to-day things that are needed for the care and feeding of these applications.
Mm-hmm. Operators are a very hot topic. I think they are kind of like one of the key elements of running data on Kubernetes. Like, do you think that operator in some way are these tools that allows us to kind of fill the gaps in what's not there yet? When you want to run the stateful workload, there is always a gap between, hey, it's running, but then you have a day 2 operation. And I feel like operators are kind of the magic tool for now. Would you think the same?
I would think so. And I think also what factors in there, and especially for a team that, talked this morning, was that they're at a little bit different complexity level, meaning, they are now running multi-cloud. They are running in these hybrid environments that they have to adapt with. And so I think there's a lot of kind of like, work that needs to be codified into an operator to kind of deal with some of these things. And so that's where I think some of the challenge comes in at, is that complexity. But I think from an initial starting point where Kubernetes is at today, I would ideally like to see, individuals when they make these decisions does this vendor have like an operator can work with? And so I think for one of the examples that from this morning, they're running Kafka, for example, of streaming map. I think that was one of the things they did a really exhaustive kind of analysis on of like, hey, which one kind of really works for us? And the great thing was in that ecosystem is in times past, there may be one blessed operator. But when they did their analysis, there's actually like 4 or 5, and there's other teams at Adobe as well who are doing these same things on our platform. And I know that they're using Coperator in the demo this morning. I know other teams looking at StreamZ for Kafka. So the great thing is we're starting to see a lot of more variance depending on like your scale, your size, and your use case. So I think that's, to me, an emerging sign of maturity.
Thank you, Joseph. Xing Yang, like through your work at the CNCF, what do you see? What are you seeing? Like some requests from end users? What are the typical things that they are running into, or that you think are top of their mind, or in terms of feature requests or things they would like to see the community to build?
I think I see that a lot of people, they actually want to run databases in Kubernetes. But I think this is still evolving. So you can see that many people are building tools that are helping them out, like the operators you guys are talking about. Actually, yesterday in the CNCF TAG Storage meeting, someone talked about building a operator for PostgreSQL, and they're actually going to donate that as a CNCF sandbox project. So I think this type of operator is really helpful for end users running data workloads in Kubernetes.
Mm-hmm. Is it EDB?
Oh, yes. Oh, you know that?
Oh, yeah. EDB is actually a sponsor of the community. So we thank them for being part of the community.
Yeah.
So very interesting that, I think this operator topic once more is coming on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Xing Yang, like what are other key initiatives that, some of your group and maybe other groups are currently working on that you believe will improve, the state of running stateful workload on Kubernetes?
Yeah, so I think data workloads typically use persistent volumes to store data. And those persistent volumes are provisioned mostly using a CSI driver now, although some people are still using the entry local volumes or the local volume static provisioner. But I think moving forward, you'll see more and more people using CSI drivers because that's getting more and more mature. So I think that all the work we're doing in SIG storage around CSI is actually very important in helping the data workloads because that is building the foundation. And also we have this Cozy project that is coming along that will provide Kubernetes APIs to provision object buckets. So this will be helpful for workloads that want to use object storage to store data. So we're trying to bring this project to alpha in 1.25 release. And then the other CNCF storage project I want to mention is etcd. So etcd is used to store Kubernetes API objects for every Kubernetes cluster. So we know that is definitely important. I recently heard that there are some data inconsistency issue that cause a lot of problems. But one of my coworkers actually stepped up and he submitted a fix. So that is fixed now. So that is great. Yeah. So yes.
It's on a stateful thing. And when operators was brought up, I was kind of like, whoa, like I'm not ready for this. So what a lot of us had to do is we were really kind of like taking, the Kubernetes, which was really like for those stateless, those things that were easy to run, that the schedule was designed for it. But a lot of times we have challenges with some of these persistent workloads with like doing, rolling updates, and sometimes it can cause disruptions. And little incremental features like that are meaningful downstream for us who are trying to navigate running these workloads in these environments. And so I think that's really what's been the game changer over the last few release cycles, is seeing these iterative developments to where it's becoming more like aware of these workloads and making it easier for a lot of us operators downstream. So I just had to call that out because, just taking a look at that, I was like, this is exciting because yes, I know it's alpha, but we'll be in a couple releases being able to have something like this that will make our lives easier as operators.
Thanks for sharing. Always good to Xing Yang, you see, you are doing amazing job. Joseph is praising your work. That's great. Thanks for sharing. Actually, like a lot of the work that's done over there is done by volunteer and people who are just passionate and want to give back and also are interested in the type of problems that are being solved. Xing Yang, are there some groups, like if some people in the audience want to contribute to help improve data on Kubernetes, what are some groups or initiatives that they should check out?
So I will say SIG Storage and Data Protection WG group in Kubernetes. So in SIG Storage, we are making sure storage is available to be consumed by containers when the containers are scheduled. And we're focusing on block and file storage now, and object storage is coming next. So whenever a workload uses persistent volume, it is using the features owned by SIG Storage. So that's why SIG Storage is really important. And in the data protection WG group, we want to make sure that your precious data is protected from data corruption or data loss. So that's also an important group for you to come and join. Another SIG I want to mention is SIG apps. So Joseph mentioned stateful set, right? So because SIG apps own those workload APIs like stateful set, deployment. So it is very important to contribute and improve those APIs, and that will make the operator's life easier.
SIG storage forever. That should be the tagline of the panel. Great. So when we surveyed hundreds of companies about their data on Kubernetes needs, a lot of them were interested in finding more off-the-shelf solution to make data on Kubernetes easier. Any of you, do you have like some good resources or tips that you think people might not be aware of that they should know about? Xing, do you have something? Joseph, I see you just unmute. But Xing, let's start.
Just, well, okay, maybe I'll start. I do not feel I have a magic answer. I feel this question is so general, so it depends on so many things. Like what workloads are they running, right? So if we know what workloads they're running, then maybe we know there is an existing operator that they can use. Or what distro are they running? Are they running Tanzu, OpenShift, Venture? So those distros may have some tools that can help as well. So I was just thinking that there was I heard there was this a RabbitMQ operator that I can use on the Tanzu side. I think it's not just limited to Tanzu. You can use it in other Kubernetes distro as well. I think it's questions just a little bit too general for me. Maybe Joseph, you have some thoughts.
I mean, I think even for like myself, I mean, well, obviously, we're talking about data on Kubernetes, the community, and I think there's been, a lot of learnings in there. And if anything, I think that's really what's going to drive, and help a lot of us is just that collective experience, because, this is a challenging space and it's still kind of evolving a bit. And so that feedback loop of, your learnings. And then I think just a little bit earlier, Xing Yang, she mentioned, about some of the different SIGs. And what's really needed is a lot more involvement from community of operators so that they get the signal that what's working, help them understand, how we can improve these things, along with, communicating back up to a lot of these, projects that are open source as well. Like at Adobe, we are, like Kafka, Spark, all these other different things, we have, Postgres, MySQL, like getting involved in it as well. And then, sharing these things, bringing up the issues, and then as well as, can you pitch in and help improve some of these things as well? I think it's that collective kind of effort that I think is really where you're going to get a lot of value at. I think it's a different, paradigm. We're not, we're not looking for the vendor to solve all our problems. We're actually leveraging that community for a lot of this knowledge. And I know there's a lot of efforts to bring some of these things together, as we're learning at scale. And so I think we're in a really good checkpoint. I think where we're at with Kubernetes, there's a lot that's happened in there where, like, if you asked me 6-7 releases ago, I was reticent. But because of like a lot of that community effort, it's like, yeah, I think this is a great time to be deploying these stateful apps on Kubernetes.
Great. So as a community, we heard a lot about people, I would say, struggling to kind of identify solution or products to do that. So actually today we just announced a new project. It's the data on Kubernetes landscape. We took inspiration from the CNCF landscape. So it's a tool for end users to find a solution, product, and consultancies around running data on Kubernetes. And you can filter by categories, database, storage, streaming, messaging, and then other metadata filters such as, does it has an operator or a kubectl plugin? Is it open source or things like that? So we hope it's going to help the community to navigate the landscape. So we have very few minutes. The last question before we end this panel. Joseph, how does Kubernetes fit into the long-term plan for Adobe?
Kubernetes is strategic to Adobe across all our solutions. So we have quite a large platform, but all efforts are in on Kubernetes, and that includes a lot of the more stateful workloads. You have to think this is a company that is over 30 years old, and it has a lot of applications that have been around that long, and yet there's a heavy investment to bring all these things into Kubernetes in a more native way. And what that means is we need those constructs that support stateful workloads. So we're all in. That I could say that for sure.
Super. Xing Yang, Joseph, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.